Daled Amud Beis. At the bottom of the Amud, the Gemara said that Rava brought a Gzeir Shava, and the Gzeir Shava that he brought was to teach us that the Gemara said it teaches us that the kmitza, the three-finger fistful that the Kohen does on a carbon mincha, must be done with the right hand. And the Gemara concluded yesterday with the question of why that was necessary when we taught yesterday this idea that anytime the Torah uses the word Kohen or it uses the word etzba, it always connotes that that activity must be performed with the right hand. So the Gemara said, why was it necessary for Rava to prove this through a Gzeir Shava when the Torah uses the word Kohen and Rava is using some other Gzeir Shava to teach that? And the Gemara said there's really two halachas here. One halacha is that the kmitza, the actual taking of the carbon mincha, must be done with the right hand. And the second halacha is that the kiddush kometz, is that when you take the three-finger fistful of flour and you put it in the kli sharis, in the vessel, before it is brought to the mizbeach, that has to be held in the right hand. So two halachos that apply to the right hand. So the Gemara begins at the top of Chafei Amud Aleph, and it says, Ula Rabbi Shimon delo ba'i kiddush kometz. There is an opinion of Rabbi Shimon who believes that the kmitza does not have to be put in a kli sharis. Ulaman do amar the Rabbi Shimon nami ba'i kiddush kometz, and there is an opinion who thought that according to Rabbi Shimon, it does indeed have to be put in a kli sharis, but bismol achshure machshir. However, if that were to be done while the kli sharis was in somebody's left hand, b'diavad, that would be acceptable according to Rabbi Shimon. So the Gemara asks, Yad de Rava lamali. What would be the necessity of Rava's teaching? Rava's teaching was teaching us that the putting of the kmitza into the kli sharis must be done in the right hand, and according to Rabbi Shimon, that's not the case. So the Gemara says, Ila kmitza atzma, if the teaching was teaching us that the actual kmitza itself must be done with the right hand, Mid Rabbi Yehuda Berei de Rabbi Chia nafka, we would already know that from Rabbi Yehuda Berei de Rabbi Chia. De Amar Rabbi Yehuda Berei de Rabbi Chia, because he said, my time of Rabbi Shimon. Why is it that Rabbi Shimon holds that the left hand is acceptable? De Amar Kra, I apologize. My time of Rabbi Shimon, why is it that according to Rabbi Shimon, what's the underlying logic of Rabbi Shimon? That Rabbi Shimon says that the kometz does not have to be taken into the right hand, into the kli sharis. The Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, Kodesh kadashim hi kachatas ka'asham. It says that the carbon mincha is very holy, like a carbon chatas and a carbon asham. So the Gemara sees that the Torah compares a carbon mincha both to a carbon chatas and a carbon asham. How is that so? Ba la'ovda biyad. It implies that if you were to do the service of the carbon mincha with your hand, ovda biyamin kachatas, it must be performed with the right hand, just like the carbon chatas activities must be performed with your right hand. Ba la'ovda bikli, however, you have the option to, instead of taking the kmitza directly with your hand and putting it on the mizbeach, you have the option to do that with a kli, sharis instead. And in that case, ovda b'smol, it would be permitted to do that with your left hand, ke'asham, just like the service of an asham can be performed with the left hand. So the Torah kind of leaves the avoda of the carbon mincha open to be performed either with the right or the left hand. So the Gemara says, Lo nitzracha ella lekometz minchas chote. Rava's teaching that it must be performed with the right hand, according to Rabbi Shimon, would be teaching us specifically about a mincha of a chote, of a sinner. So sometimes a person does certain averos in the Torah, and it prescribes that they must bring, instead of an animal korban, a carbon mincha. Or sometimes, if they are not wealthy enough to bring an animal korban, they can substitute that with a carbon mincha. And the Torah says, the Gemara says, Sal kadai tachamina, ha'ul va'amar Rabbi Shimon. Since Rabbi Shimon said, Shalo yehe karbano muhudar, Rabbi Shimon said that when somebody does an aveira and they have to bring a carbon mincha, it's different than a regular carbon mincha because we do not require it to be brought with oil and with frankincense, because we don't want the person who has done an aveira to have this added part of his carbon, which makes the carbon mincha a little bit nicer. And since we say that, the Gemara says, one may have entertained the possibility, ki kamatz la b'smol nami tiskasher, that if the sinner is bringing his carbon mincha and we do the kemitza with our left hand, which is considered like a lower form of avoda, it's not as nice as doing it with the right hand, one may have said that that as well would be kosher because, again, we don't want the sinner's carbon to be as nice as the regular carbon. Kamash Malan, Rabba's teaching tells us that even the minchas chote must be done with the right hand. The Mishnah now begins a new topic. Nishbach hadam al haritzpa. If after they would shecht the carbon, the blood was supposed to be received in some sort of bowl and then brought to the mizbeach. So if instead of being received in the bowl, if it nishbach al haritzpa, if it spilled on the floor, va'asafo, and then you gathered up the blood to bring it to the mizbeach, puzzle, that's puzzle. It has to go directly from the neck of the cow into the or the neck of the animal, whatever the animal might be, directly from the neck of the animal into the bowl. So the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, how do we know this halacha, that it has to go directly from the neck into the bowl? V'lakach hakohen hamashiach midam hapar. It says the kohen hamashiach will take from the dam hapar. So the Gemara says this teaches us, number one, the first halacha is midam hanefesh. It has to be the blood which exits the animal's body immediately upon slaughter. V'lo midam ha'or, but not blood which is already lying in the skin of the animal. V'lo midam hatamtsis, which is blood which trickles out of the animal moments or a while after the initial splurt of blood that happens right after it's shechted. So that's one thing. So first of all, the dam that has to be accepted is that first initial blood which comes out after the slaughter. The second halacha is midam hapar, dam me hapar yikablenu. We have to receive the blood directly from the par, directly from the animal. It can't go on the floor first. Di'i salka daitach midam hapar kidiksiv, because if you would think that the pasuk is just teaching us midam hapar kidiksiv, like it normally would mean, midam va'afilu miktsas dam. What the Gemara is saying here is that when we find the mem prefix in the Torah, it often indicates that you're taking a part of a larger whole. Like when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to take the water from the Nile to make dam, it says, V'lakachta mi mei hayor. It doesn't mean you'll take all the blood in the river, all the water in the river. It means you'll take from a sampling of some of the water in the river. So the Gemara says, V'lakachta mi dam hapar, the Kohen which should take mi dam hapar, could have the implication of saying he should take some of the blood from the animal, but not all of it. So the Gemara says, if you would think to say that, we can't do that. Rav said, Hashochet tzarich sheyikabel es kol damo shalpar. Rav said that when you shecht the korban, you must receive all of its blood in the bowl. So it couldn't be that the Torah is telling us just to receive some of the blood. Shenemar, ve'es kol dam hapar yishpoch. It says a few psukim later, all of the blood of the cow will be poured on the mizbeach. So if all of the blood of the cow is going to be poured on the mizbeach, we obviously have to receive all of the blood, not just some of it. Ela midam hapar. What do the words midam hapar mean? They indicate dam mehapar yikablenu. You must receive the blood directly from the cow. Now, how do these two words indicate that? Kasavar gorin umosifin. What's going on here in the Gemara is gorin umosifin. We sometimes subtract letters and add letters in the Torah, vidorshan, and then make a drasha. So what we're saying is the Torah says the word midam hapar, and we're taking the mem away from the word midam, and we're putting it at the beginning of the word hapar. So if you were to read those two words that way, the Torah would be saying v'lakach dam, you should take blood, me hapar, from the cow, directly from the cow itself, without it falling on the floor. And that's where that limud is coming from, that it can't go on the floor first. Gufa. Back to Rav's statement. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Hashochet tzarich sheyikabel es kol damo shalpar. All of the blood from the korban must be received. Shenemar, as it says in pasuk, ve'es kol dam hapar yishpoch. All of the blood of the korban, all of the blood of the bull, will be poured on the mizbeach. So the Gemara asks, V'ha b'shirayim ksiv. This pasuk ve'es kol dam hapar yishpoch is talking about the remainder of blood. What's going on here is the Gemara is bringing a pasuk that's talking about the korban offered by the Kohen Gadol. When the Kohen Gadol does an aver, we learned in Horios that he has to bring a specific korban, it's a bull. So the psukim there say that after the shechita, they receive the blood in a bowl, and it says he takes some of the blood and he applies it to the inner mizbeach, to the mizbeach ketores, which is located near the menorah and the shulchan. Following that procedure, he walks outside of the heichal, and it says all of the blood must be poured on the outer mizbeach. So the Gemara says, well, wait a minute, what do you mean all of the blood must be poured on the outer mizbeach? It's not all of the blood, it's the remaining blood, because some of the blood of the cow has already been applied on the inner mizbeach. So the Gemara says, the pasuk, again, literally the pasuk just means all of the remaining blood. But it doesn't say that, it says all of the blood. So the Gemara says there must be some sort of deeper level of interpretation here. There's another level of understanding. So the Gemara says, what does it mean? Im eino inyan l'shirayim, if it can't be talking about the remaining blood, dehalesa l'kule, because not all of the blood is here, because some of it has already been applied on the inner mizbeach. Tinehu inyan b'kabbalah, it must be alluding to some other halacha regarding the blood. And what's that other halacha? The other halacha is that when you shecht the animal, all of the blood must be received in the bowl before going forward. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel, another statement and halacha. Hashoche tzarich shiagbi sakin lamala. When they would shecht the korban, the knife had to be lifted upwards immediately after shechita. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, v'lokach midam hapar, v'lo midam hapar v'davar acher, that the blood had to be received. Sorry, and it had to be the blood entirely from the cow. Sorry. So the Gemara says that the blood cannot be mixed. It can't be mixed. Thank you. So the Gemara says that the blood, if the blood were to go on the knife and then get mixed into the bowl, we would have blood which did not come directly from the cow. It came from the cow onto the knife and now mixed into the bowl. It has to come directly from the cow. So therefore the knife immediately after shechita should be lifted up so the blood doesn't drip from the knife into the bowl. So the Gemara says, Sakin b'may mekanachle. What then do we clean off the blood with? I mean, that blood is coming from a korban. We can't just, put it down the drain. Like, what do we do with it? We can't just use some other random item to clean it off. So Amar Abai says, Bisfas Mizrak. We would wipe it off on the outer rim of the bowl that we received the blood in. Kidiksiv, as the pasuk says, Kapore Zahav. This is a pasuk in Ezra that's talking about the Bnei Yisrael returning to go back and build the Bayis Sheni, and it's talking about all the different kalim that they had from the Bayis Rishon and the different things they're bringing back with them from Bavel, and it calls the bowls Kapore Zahav. So why does it use the word Kapore? So the Gemara says that Kapore also in Aramaic can mean to wipe off. So you see that the bowl itself, it's one of its added functions was to use it to wipe off the blood from the knife. Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, another halacha. Hashochet tzarich sheyitain v'ridin l'soch hakli, the top of Chafei Amud Beis, that when they shecht, they would have to take the vridin, which are these blood vessels in the neck, and they would have to be put into the receiving bowl. Itmar Nami, it was also stated, Amar of Asi, Amar of Yochanan, v'ridin tzarich sheyiru avir kli, that these blood vessels located in the neck should be right over the airspace of the kli. So Rashi explains, when the Gemara says they have to put the vridin in the kli, it doesn't literally mean that. That's almost impossible, right? I mean, we can't get the vridin before we shech the animal. Once you shech it, it's done. So Rashi says it's lav davka. It doesn't mean into the kli. It means that the kli should be situated in such a way that the blood will come directly from these blood vessels in the neck of the animal directly into the bowl so that we can do the Kabbalah properly. So now the Gemara asks like a hypothetical question. By Minei Rabbi Asi mi Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Asi was wondering, and he asked Rabbi Yochanan, Haya Mekabel, if the Kohen was receiving the blood from the animal, V'nifchaso Shulei Mizrak, and the bottom of the bowl gave way. Ad Shelo Higia Dam La'avir, before the blood came into the airspace of the Kli, Mahu, what would be the halacha? Avir she'ein sofo lanuach kimunach dami. Do we say that if an item is located above the airspace of another item, it's considered like it's resting in that item itself? Olo kimunach dami, or is it not like it's resting in the bowl? So the question is that you shechted the animal, the blood is going through the air, and it's above the kli that you're going to receive it in. The bottom of the kli gives way and opens up. And obviously now the blood is going to end up on the floor. So if we were to view the blood when it's in the airspace above the kli as halachically already in the kli because it's headed there anyway, so then the fact that it fell on the floor would not be an issue, because once the blood is received in the bowl, it can then spill on the floor and you can pick it up and then put it on the mizbeach. It's not a problem. The only problem is if it goes directly from the animal onto the floor before going into the bowl. So he says, are we going to view this blood as having been resting in the bowl or not, by virtue of the fact that it was located in the airspace above the bowl? Amar le, so Rabbi Yochanan responds, Tini Suha, there's a brisa which teaches us the answer to your question. The brisa is it's talking about the halachos of the para aduma. And the halacha of the para aduma is, we know that we take the ashes of this cow, and you have to mix them with water that comes from a fresh spring. And the water has to come directly from the spring and to be put into a kli for the purpose of mixing it with the ashes. If the water came from a spring and ended up in this cup, and then I decided, hey, that would be convenient, I'm going to use it for the para aduma water, that wouldn't work. As soon as it comes to rest in the cup, for some other purpose, I can't then go use it for the para aduma. It has to go into the cup for the purposes of the para aduma. So the Brisa discusses the following scenario. Chavis shemunachas tachas hazinok mayim. Chavis shemunachas tachas hazinok. If you have a barrel which is located on the ground, and above it, horizontally above it, there is a stream of water coming out of a spring, and the water is kind of shooting out of the spring, and it's going to go into the air and then fall down into the barrel. So the Gemara says, Mayim shebesocha, any water which has already been collected in the barrel, vishebechutzala, and the water above the barrel outside of it, pisulan, they are puzzled to be used for the para aduma. Why? Because once the water is in the barrel, it's puzzle, and as well, any water above it before it goes into it is considered as if it's already in the barrel. And therefore, if I would come along and intercept some of that water before it physically goes into the barrel, it's irrelevant, and the water still can't be used for the para aduma. Siref piha lezinok mayim, if I took that barrel and I put it right up to where the spring was producing the water, so then shebesocha pesulin, whatever water is collected in that barrel is pasul for the para aduma. V'shebechutzala kasherin, but water which has not yet reached it, since it's not really above it, we're assuming the spring is located horizontally, so if I put the barrel up against it, there is no water located above its airspace. It's just water in the spring or water in the barrel. Those are your two options. So it says the water in the barrel is pasul. The water still remaining in the spring is kosher and can be used. So that was Rabbi Yochanan's answer to Rabbi Asi. So the Gemara asks, Hi, Mai, what's going on here? Ba'i minei, Rabbi Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan the following question. Avir she'ein sofo lanuach. He asked him, what is the status of an item which is located above the airspace of another item that's not going to eventually come to rest in that item? Why? Because the second item, the bottom of it, gave way. V'kapashatle, and Rabbi Yochanan's response was a case of avir shesofo lanuach. The case of the barrel's intact. So the Gemara says it could very well be that in the case of an intact barrel, so in that case we say anything above the airspace of the barrel, being that it's headed towards the barrel, halachically we'll consider it that it's already in the barrel. But if the barrel doesn't have a bottom to it and the water is never going to end up in the barrel, maybe it shouldn't be considered in the barrel until it's actually in the barrel, not above it. So the Gemara says, Tarti kabai mine. Really, there were two questions posed, and we only recorded one of them. Im timtzi lomar. The first question was, Im timtzi lomar avir she'ein sofa lanuach lav kemunach dami. His first question was, if you're going to tell me that, again, when the liquid is located above an item in its airspace, and the receiving item does not have a bottom to it, if you're going to say that at that point it's not considered like it's in the receiving item, what would you say? Avir shesofo lanuach mai. What would you say if the receiving item had an intact bottom? Then would it change? That's what Rabbi was asking Rabbi Yochanan. It was like a double-stepped question. To which Rabbi Yochanan responded, you see from the case of the para aduma that if the receiving bowl is intact, we would consider anything above its airspace as having come to rest in the bowl itself. Rabbi Yosef Masni Hachi. Rabbi Yosef taught the back and forth as we have presented it just now. Rav Kahana Masni Chavis Ba'imine Upasha Lechavis. Rav Kahana, the version he had of this discussion was that Rav Asi was asking Rabbi Yochanan about what the halacha would be in that case of the para aduma, to which Rabbi Yochanan responded, it's actually a brisa about para aduma, and he explained it to him. Rabba Masni Chavis. Rabba believed that the question posed was regarding the para aduma case of the barrel, upashatle mizrak, and the response was applying it to the response was talking about korbanos, was a mizrak to receive the blood of the korban. To which Rabbi Yochanan responded, I ata moded, don't you admit to me b'mizrak she'i efshar lo below zinok, that Rabbi Yochanan would have been responding to him that we see by all korbanos that there's going to be some flow from the blood flowing from the animal is going at some point, it's going to pass over some airspace before being received in the bowl by the Kohen. So Rabbi Yochanan was saying to him, you see from the very nature of all korbanos, the way korbanos work is that they the blood goes into the airspace before going into the kli, and we consider it already before it goes into the kli as having been in the kli. So korbanos proves that point that an item located in the airspace above a receptacle is ki'ilu, it's already in there. Now the Gemara brings up another topic, Tanan Hasam. It brings up the idea of, again, we're talking about water coming from a spring to be used for the para aduma. So it says in the Mishnah, Nasan yado o raglo o ala yirakos kidei sheyavru mayim lechavis. What happens if the water flowing from a spring is like coming down a slope, and it's not going to go directly into the kli that you have prepared for the para aduma, and you try to take one of these items and use it to try to direct the water into the kli. So the Mishnah says, if you take your hand or your foot or vegetable leaves and use it to direct the water, the Mishnah says psulin, that is pasul. However, if you use ale kanim, if you use reed leaves, ale agozim or walnut leaves, keshera, that would be kosher. What's the difference in the item that you use? Zehaklal. The underlying principle is as follows. Davar hamakabel tuma, if you use something which can be makabel tuma to direct the water into the kli, pisulin, the water becomes pasul. Davar she'eno makabel tuma, if you use an item which is not makabel tuma, kesherin, then the water is kosher. And walnut leaves and reed leaves, since they are inedible, so they are not makabel tuma, and therefore you can use them to direct the water into the kli. So the Gemara says, Menahani mili, where do we find this distinction that you can't use something which is makabel tuma to direct water to be used for the para aduma? The Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi bar Abba Amar Kra. The pasuk says, Ach mayon uvor mikveh mayim yiyeh tahor. This is really a pasuk about mikvah, and the pasuk says that the literal meaning of the pasuk says that while water in a cup can be makabel tuma, however, mayon ubor mikveh mayim, a spring or a mikvah, yiyeh tahor, they cannot become tameh, which is why we can go into them when we are tameh and they're matahar us. They're not makabel tuma. That's the simple meaning of the pasuk. The Gemara makes a drasha on the last two words, and on the words yihiyeh tahor, it should be tahor. The Gemara says havayasan ayidei tahara. These things must come into being. They must be created through tahara. There can't be anything which is makabel tuma, which causes these things to come into their being, and therefore if you used something to be makabel tuma to direct the water into it, it would not be kosher. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zosomeres. This shows us avir kli kikli dami. This teaches us, actually, he says, that the airspace above the kli has the status of being in the kli itself. How does that teach us this? So Rashi explains that what he's saying is like this, that if the water comes off my hand is makabel tuma. If the water comes off my hand and goes in the air before it goes into the cup, and then it would fall into the cup, that would not be considered being created through a davar tameh, because it did not go directly from my hand into the cup. It went into the airspace, and then it's like it just fell into the cup on its own. However, if the airspace above the cup was considered like it was in the cup itself, the water came off my hand and went into that airspace. As soon as it goes into the airspace above the cup, it's as if it's in the cup itself. So the Gemara says, that means then that all of this water came into this cup through a davar hamakabel tuma, meaning myself. And that's why you see that the airspace above it is considered like the kli itself. So, Amar Le Reb Zera. Reb Zera said to Reb Chia bar Abba, V'dilma b'shoses. Who says that the scenario is one where the water is coming off my hand and going into the airspace and then going into the kli? Perhaps the person situated his hand directly into the kli. So it's shoses. It's dripping directly into the kli, and that's why it's like he created it through his hand, because his hand went directly into the kli. Amar Le. So Reb Chia bar Abba responded, Tarda, which means like, you fool. Kidei sheyavru mayim l'chavis tanan. It says explicitly in the Mishnah, Kidei sheyavru, that the water should pass, which has the implication that it's going in the air first and then into the kli. Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Me'eduso shel Rabbi Tzadok nishnes mishnazu. He says that the aforementioned Mishnah that points out that certain things are not makabel tuma and therefore they can be used to create the mikvah, or they could be used to lead to direct the water for the usage of the par aduma and as well for mikvah. That's based on the testimony of Rabbi Tzadok in the following Mishnah. Titanan, Hey Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok said, Al hazochalin shekilchan ba'alei agozim shein kasherin. Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Tzadok, said that if you have flowing water and you're directing that flowing water over walnut leaves, then the water is kosher to be used either to purify a mitzvah or to be used for a mikvah or a spring. So the Gemara says, Zeh hayamaisa ba'ohalaya. This was a maisa in the town of Ohalaya. Uba masa lefnei chachamim belishkas hagazis. And they brought the question, they presented it to the Sanhedrin. V'hichshiru, and the Sanhedrin said that it was kosher because walnut leaves, being inedible, are not mekabel tuma. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Zera says the following halacha: Hatsorem ozen hapar. If after shechting the korban, before the receiving of the dam, somebody nicked the ear of the animal, ve'achar kach kibel damo, and only then received its blood, pasul. That would be pasul. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'lakach midam hapar. You must take from the blood of the bull, and the Gemara says this implies par shehaya kvar. This means it has to be in the state shehaya kvar that it was the entire time. There can't be a change that has happened to the animal in between the shechita and the Kabbalah, other than obviously the shechita itself. So the Gemara says, Ashkachan kadshe kachim. We see this is talking about an animal which is kadshe kachim, a certain level of korban. Kachim kalim minalan. How do we know that the same stringency would apply to an even lower level of korban called kachim kalim? Amar Rava. Rava says, Tanya, the Brisa states this halacha. It says by the korban Pesach, and the korban Pesach is kachim kalim, se samim zachar ben shana. It should be a se, a sheep, tamim, unblemished, zachar, male, ben shana, and 1 year old. Sheyehe tamim u ben shana. It should be unblemished and 1 year old, bishas shchita, when you slaughter it. Bikabala, when you receive its blood, beholacha, and when you take the blood to the mizbeach, bizrika, and you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, minayin. How do we know that the animal still has to be 1 year old at that point? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, yihiyeh, it should be. Kol havayosav lo yihiyu elatam uben shana. All of its steps, any part of its essential avoda, must be done while the animal remains in this state. It should be unblemished, it should be a male, it should be 1 year old. So Esvei Abaye poses the following question. Rabbi Yoshua says, Kol Zevachim shebaTorah, all korbanos in the Torah, shenishtayer mehen kezayis. If something happens to the animal and you have only a kezayis of basar, or kezayis chelev, or even a kezayis of the fat, which was going to be burned on the mizbeach, if one kezayis remains of the animal, zorek es hadam, you can proceed and go on with the service and do the zrika. So what's Abaye's question? Abaye says, what do you see? You see that if something happened, if the entire animal somehow, something happened to it, it became destroyed, and there was only one kezayis left, you can proceed. Well, if the animal becomes destroyed, he says, that's the greatest mum possible. You see that the animal wasn't in its full existence from the beginning of the service all the way to the end. You see that as long as there's only a little bit of the animal left, you can proceed. And Rava said that the animal has to remain unblemished throughout the entire service, shchita, all the way up to the bringing of the blood to the mizbeach. So the Gemara says, Targuma aben shana, that requirement of the carbon pesach to be in a certain state the entire way through, that requirement is only an age requirement. That requirement does not apply to being unblemished or to any of the other things. So the Gemara asks the basic question, Umi ika midi de b'shas shchita ben shana b'shas holacho zrika ben shtayim? How can that be that you're going to have an animal which is 1 year old when you shecht it, and then 1 moment later when you do the zrika, it's not a year old anymore? How is that going to happen? So Amar Rava says, Zo someres, you see that what the Torah is telling us here is sha'os poslos bekachim. When it comes to kachim, we follow a halachic requirement called me'es la'es. We go after 24-hour periods, and therefore the animal actually turns the next age when it becomes that time of day, exactly following 2 years after its birth. So therefore, if it was born right in the middle of the afternoon prior, so that 2 years prior, it would be 1 year and 11 months old. And if the shechita was done and a moment later was the exact moment of its 2-year-old birthday, that would turn 2, and then the carbon pesach would be invalidated. I'm going to stop here, but I just want to add, since we have a little bit of time, it'll be quick. Just if you go back to Chaf Hei Amud Aleph, the Gemara made a drasha. The Gemara said, the pasuk says, "V'lakach midam hapar," and the Gemara said, we take away the mem and we from midam and we put it on the word hapar, and we read it as if it says "V'lakach dam me hapar." You should take the blood from the cow's neck, and therefore we see that it can't go on the floor first. So this is a principle called gorin umosifin. We're changing around the letters. The Malbim, in his Pirush on the Torah, the Malbim often will explain how the Chachamim came up with certain drushos that they came up with, and how it makes sense based on a list of 613 rules that he comes up with for the Torah's grammar. So he says the following thing, which is fascinating. He says the mem prefix in the Torah can basically indicate two possible things. The mem prefix either indicates that when it follows the word v'lakach, you should take. So it always means either that you should take me from a certain place. He says it indicates makom. So Hashem tells us, take something, and then it'll say, take it me from this, take it from this place. That's one possibility. Second possibility is, which often the Gemara says, is that the mem prefix indicates you should take a part of something, but not the whole thing. So the example he gives is when Hashem told Moshe to take the water from the Nile. He said, take mi me hayor. He was saying, take some of the water, not all of it. So those are our two possibilities. He says, how does the Torah convey the idea of taking the entire thing? So the Torah will say the word v'lakach followed by the word es. It will say v'lakach es shemen hamishcha, means take all of it, not part of it. So what's going on here? Here he says, the Torah says, v'lakach mi dam hapar. You should take from the dam hapar. So that could mean two things. It could either mean take some of the dam of the par, or take all of it. So he says, well, it can't mean take some of it, because the Gemara, if you remember, brought a pasuk. It says, a few pasukim later, it says, Ve'es kol dam hapar yishpoch. All of the blood he must pour on the outer mizbeach. So he says, we're stuck here. It can't mean take part of it, because from context it's clear it doesn't mean that. So what must that mem mean? That mem must mean you should take from it. It's indicating the place you should take it from. So the Gemara says, instead of saying v'lakach mi dam hapar, it's v'lakach dam. Where should you take it from? Me hapar. The mem is going on the place you should take it from the cow. So then he asks the obvious question. He says, well, that's very nice and fancy. He says, but then why is the Torah playing all these games? Why isn't the Torah just right? V'lakach dam me hapar. Why would you write it this way? Which now is causing us to make this whole calculation. So he says another rule. And he says the word dam in the Torah is found in two contexts. Dam can either be written in the Torah what's called bismichus, which means with, next to something else. So for example, it says, shofech dam ha'adam, one who kills the dam of a person. That's called bismichus. It means the word dam is connected to the word following it. So, or it says, dam hatzipur, the blood of the bird. Anytime he says the Torah uses the word dam bismichus, it always refers to dam hanefesh. It always refers to the life blood of the being. So shofech dam ha'adam means if you take away the life blood of the person and you kill them, so on and so forth. Dam can also be written in the Torah by itself. When the word dam is written by itself in the Torah, it never implies dam hanefesh. The example he gives, among many, is by nida. It says dam yihiyezova bivsara. Just as the word dam, it's not a certain type of dam. It just says dam will flow from her body. That's not dam hanefesh. Any type of dam makes the woman tameh. So he says, if the Torah wrote v'lakach mi dam hapar, the way it does write it. So I apologize. If it says v'lakach dam me hapar, which is what it should have written, so that would be the word dam without being nismach to anything. And that would have the implication that the blood you can use from the korban can be any blood, not its lifeblood. But what did we say? What kind of blood must be used from the korban? It must be the lifeblood. So the Torah had to write v'lakach dam hapar to make the word dam nismach to the word par, which shows us it's using its lifeblood. That sets down that precedent. And once it sets down that rule, now we have this problem because of that implication of what the mem can mean. So the Gemara makes that drasha, which shows that the mem doesn't mean take part of that lifeblood. It means take all of the lifeblood from the cow.
Now I have a question. Because of the last explanation, now I have a question. Yeah. Okay. So